There we go. Hey, kia ora, Helen Brahms here, coming to you live from Sun City in Arizona. Welcome to Before the Dirt Nap podcast, number 1344. We are getting up there in the numbers. We only got a couple of more months to go, and we'll be hitting the 4-year. Well, end of July, we hit the 4-year mark. 31st of July, if you must know exactly, we will hit the 4-year mark. So I don't know what day that is yet because I haven't calculated it. But welcome to, what did I say, number 1344, Storytime. So everybody's been going on about Chat GTP and other AI programs that will do this, that, and the other thing for you, come up with ideas and titles, and you can get it to write lists of things. And I've been playing around with it a little bit. But today I thought, I wonder what would happen if I told it. Actually, no, I did this last night, sorry. I wonder what would happen if I told it to write a novel. Now, I did not specify the number of words. I did not specify how long it was supposed to be or anything. So it wrote me, and the only prompt I gave it was write a novel on a genealogy mystery. That was it. That's all the instructions that Chat GTP, oh God, I can't remember all these names, that Chat GTP was given to write a novel. It wrote a 3-chapter novel, a very, very short book, and I was reading it and I thought, this could actually work, because I could use it as a basis to put more information in there and turn it into, like a big story. And taking, skills that I've learned with my genealogy skills and everything else. But so I was looking at the story and reading through it, and I thought, yep, that could be a good start. So that's like giving me the foundation, and then I can go in and I can still take the same character names and just pad the story a little more to turn it into an actual novel. So I thought I'd read it to you guys and see what you thought, because there's a lot of places that I could plug a lot of information in there about some of the places that they could try for research and things like that, and stuff like that. Now, there is a little confusion in here because there is one character that has the same name as somebody that they find as the wife of somebody else. So let's see if we can follow that, because I got a little confused. And there's some big gaps in here that where they say, oh, they kept looking for certificate, and I'm like, yeah, well, there's way more than just certificate. So, but hey, I thought for not giving it instructions on how many words I wanted or anything, it wasn't too bad. So tonight you guys get to hear the Chat GPT's version, or their interpretation of write a novel on a genealogy mystery. So we've got 3 chapters. They're very short chapters. It won't take long to read this. So we have chapter 1, The Discovery. Margaret always thought her family tree was straightforward. She knew her grandparents and great-grandparents on both sides, and they had always told her stories about their ancestors. However, when she started delving deeper into her genealogy, she discovered a mysterious branch of the family that no one had ever spoken about. I'm intrigued already. It started when Margaret inherited a box of old photographs and documents from her great aunt, who had recently passed away. As she sorted through the items, she came across a birth certificate for someone she had never heard of before, a woman named Caroline Adams, born in 1905. Margaret knew that her great-grandmother's name was Caroline, but this was clearly a different person. Margaret became obsessed with finding out more about the mysterious Caroline Adams. She searched online databases and archives, but she couldn't find any information about her beyond the birth certificate. She asked her relatives if they knew anything, but all of them claimed ignorance. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Margaret decided to hire a professional genealogist. The genealogist, a friendly woman named Sarah, was intrigued by the challenge and promised to do her best to uncover the truth. Chapter 2, The Investigation. Sarah began her investigation by examining the birth certificate more closely. It listed Caroline Adams' parents as Thomas and Sarah Adams, and their address as a small town in rural Maine. Sarah dug deeper into public records and discovered that Thomas and Sarah had 2 other children, a son named William, born in 1901, and a daughter named Elizabeth, born in 1903. But when Sarah tried to find further information on the family, she hit a dead end. There were no other birth, marriage, or death certificates for any of them. It was as if the family had vanished into thin air. Sarah expanded her search beyond Maine, hoping to find some clues about the Adams family's origins. She discovered that Thomas had been born in England and immigrated to the United States as a young man. Sarah traced Thomas's journey from England to Maine and found that he had married Sarah only a few years after his arrival. Sarah continued to dig deeper into Thomas's past, hoping to find a connection to Caroline Adams. She found an immigration record for Thomas that listed his occupation as farm laborer. She searched for farms in the area where Thomas and Sarah had lived and found one that was owned by a family with the surname Baxter. The Baxters had a daughter named Caroline, born in 1905, who was listed as missing on the same day that Caroline Adams was born. Chapter 3, The Revelation. Sarah was shocked by the discovery. It seemed that Caroline Adams had been kidnapped as a baby and raised by the Adams as their own. The Baxters had reported Caroline missing to the police, but the case had never been solved. She shared her findings with Margaret, who was equally stunned. She wondered why no one in her family ever mentioned the kidnapping. Margaret's great-grandmother Caroline had been born in 1902, just 3 years before Caroline Adams, and had grown up in the same town. It was possible she had known the truth, but had kept it a secret all her life. Margaret was eager to find out more about Caroline Baxter and what had happened to her. She and Sarah traveled to England to search for clues. They found records of a Caroline Baxter who immigrated to Canada in 1925 and married a man named James Murphy. They traced the couple's journey to California, where they had settled and started a family. Margaret and Sarah made contact with Caroline Baxter's descendants and shared their discovery. The family was shocked but grateful to finally have answers about their long-lost relative. They had never known what had happened to Caroline or why she had disappeared, and they were eager to learn more about her life. As Margaret and Sarah dug deeper into Caroline Baxter's story, they learned that she had struggled with feelings of displacement and identity throughout her life. She had always felt like she didn't quite fit in with the family that had raised her, but she had never known why. She had married James Murphy and started a family of her own, but she always felt like something was missing. Margaret and Sarah had helped connect Caroline's descendants with their newfound relatives on the Adams side of the family. They learned that Caroline passed away in 1982, but her legacy lived on through her children and grandchildren. As Margaret reflected on her genealogy mystery, she realized that her family tree was more complex and fascinating than she had ever imagined. She had uncovered a hidden branch of her family and helped bring closure to a long-standing mystery. She felt grateful for the opportunity to connect with her ancestors and learn more about their lives, and she knew that her journey of discovery was far from over. So that was just, like I said, it was very, very short. It only took me like 6 minutes to read it. But as I was looking through, I'm like, hang on. We've got some changes in storyline a little bit in here. We've got a lot of details missing. Like, did they look in newspapers? Did they look at U.S. federal census reports? Did they look at deeds and titles and newspapers and obituaries and a whole bunch of other stuff that is made available to the public. So it was very interesting to read that, and I thought, well, that's actually a really good foundation, and then from there I can take, and pad it a little more into being a novel. So I'm going to give it a go and see how that goes, but that's just like the foundation. And it's only 3 chapters. The novel's a little longer, but there are a couple of authors that I follow that write about genealogy mysteries in a fictional sense. And one of them is slightly on the paranormal side, only because this woman who is a single mom, her husband passed away, I think it was, and she's always been interested in genealogy, and so she ended up, by the end of the book, becoming a professional genealogist and teaming up with another professional genealogist and a historian, and the 3 of them formed this company. And then the other books in the series are their adventures that they have with this. And it's interesting because the first book is concentrated on the woman who's a solo mum. The second book is on the historian in their group and digging into his family, and then the third book is on the professional genealogist who decided to get together with them all, and her search into her genealogy. But there's always a little bit of paranormal in there, like a past ancestor coming back, trying to take over the body of one of the characters in the book, and what they have to do to combat that, and how they find out about this person, and how it appears every so often, where it appears through the genealogy tree, like how many generations it comes back. And so they ended up banished, and they you have to figure out how to get rid of this thing. Another one was and this is kind of how they find family tree connections and all this sort of stuff. It's really fascinating. And the other one is just and I can't remember the authors of these. The other one is he doesn't have any paranormal in his, but it does take you through the steps of researching while you're solving these mysteries. And of course, it's all fictional and everything else. So I thought, well, this one, we'll see how this one goes. So it'll be kind of fun, because I've always been wanting to write a genealogy mystery, and I have one that has 5 different first chapters. You go 5 different first chapters. Yeah, because I wasn't sure how to just. Well, this book is going to go, and it's going to be done from it's going to be done from 2 different perspectives. The one that I'm in the process of writing. One chapter, like I'll have the preview, which will set the scene. Then one chapter will be present day. The next chapter, and on the person doing the research to discover the mystery behind the is it great-grandfather or great-great-grandfather? The mystery behind their father's grandfather's family. And then the next chapter is what's actually taking place in time, back in history, what was taking place then. So it's going to be told from the present tense, one chapter from present tense, next chapter from historical tense. So you'll get to learn the actual story along the way of what happened. You'll learn the backstory behind what the mystery they're trying to solve. And you'll learn how the present person is going through trying to find the answers that they need to what happened in the past. So it's kind of I've got the whole outline done. And like I said, I've got 5 beginnings for the first chapter, which takes place in the early 1900s. And so I've got 5 first chapters for it. I have 5 first chapters. I have 3 second chapters based on which of the 5 ones that because I've got 5 first chapters and 3 chapter 2s. So I have to figure out which one I'm going to keep following on, because every time I get an idea, I go in there and I write another chapter. And it's basically just a very rough outline, which just with a bit more padding in there and everything else could very easily become the chapter, like putting in the speeches and stuff like that. Man, it's just the notes. So going and putting in the character conversations would be all that these summaries for each chapter need. So it's interesting. I haven't actually looked at that one for a bit. It's because my notes are in storage. That's right. My notes are in storage. So I have to dig out my notes from storage, and then it'll all come flooding back to me, and we'll actually get that one written. But it's a spin-off from my building series. Yes, that was taking a while because I don't know how to start. I did do a start on the first chapter. When I took it to my writing group, they turned around and says, "You made the weather the main character in the first chapter." I go, "I did." Wow, that's pretty cool. So anyway, but let us know your thoughts about the story that I just read, what you think about it. I know there are a lot of holes in it, and why they went to England to look into Carolyn Baxter's background, I don't know. But I will when I pad out the story and write it a little more. So anyway, that's what I have for you for today. So what stories do you have floating around your family that are mysteries? Families have lots of different mysteries and stuff, and sometimes as a genealogist, it is hard to know which, especially if it's going to be a very upsetting story. Do we, right up front, you're telling the people that, okay, you must prepare yourself for what we're going to find. It could be all happy, all okay in there. There may be some tragedy in there, especially the closer in it is to the family. Like if it's like, second great-grandparents and beyond, it's a little easier for them to comprehend that. But if it's great-grandparents and great-grandparents and grandparents where the stories come up, that's a little too close to home, especially if they knew the people personally. Like for me, I knew I got to, well, that's really weird. Anyway, I got to spend time with my grandmother's parents. They were the only great-grandparents alive when I was born, and I had them had one until I was about 6 or 7, and one until I was about 7, and the next one passed. I'm trying to remember when Pop passed. He passed a few years later. He passed a few years later. So, but I had Granny and Pop, and I was actually named after Granny. My middle name's Mary, and she was Mary, and that was her first name. And she always claimed that I was named after her sister Helen. Well, nobody in the family knew that she had a sister called Helen, and it wasn't until I was tracing the family tree later on that I actually found out she did have a sister called Helen, and everybody called her either Nellie or some other name that everybody knew her by, but she was Editha Helene. And so I said to my mum, I said, I found Helen. I found Granny's sister Helen. She's actually Editha Helene. So that's how we found out the Helen. But I wasn't named after her. It was the Mary part that I was named after my granny. And she was a formidable woman, my granny. She was a sweetheart. I loved her. I loved visiting my granny and Pop. But anyway, so what mysteries do you have? Have you tried any of the AI programs for writing articles or novels and things? And what have been your experiences? And do you have a genealogy mystery that you need solved? Because we can help with that too. We love solving the mysteries, and that gives us. I love getting in there and solving mysteries, and that's, I guess, why I love genealogy so much, because it's the ultimate puzzle that will never ever be solved. And you can go, oh, we can solve puzzles. You got record. Yeah, but you got to remember, it was a long time before they put pen to paper. They were doing hieroglyphs on cave walls, on bits of wood, and things like that. So have those records survive time. Yes, we've got the DNA that can help us trace back to where we originated from, but the DNA only shows the blood relative. It doesn't show how. The genealogy shows how you are related. So it depends. Lots of records over the years have been destroyed by fires, natural disasters. People purposely destroying records. There's been natural disasters that have destroyed records. There have been fires, floods, all sorts of things where records have been destroyed. And so there will be gaps in genealogy, because what you see online, and I've always said this because I can't remember where I first heard it, but on one of the classes that I did earlier this year or late last year, one of the historians that we had there, in her slide presentation, she said, even though there are millions of records available online, they represent about 5% of the available records to us. And she says, and honestly, I think that number's lower. So if you think that there's all these records, I'm going to give you all the answers, all the records are not online. What is online represents 5% or less of all the available records in the world that can be accessed. And this includes private collections, it includes public records, it includes records that are kept that are not made public, because depending on the copyrights of the records as to what can be put online and what cannot be put online, what you have to actually go in person to physically see the book or the folder or the file that it's kept in. So there are some that will never ever be online because of the copyright protections or the copyright protections on them. So some of them you do actually have to go in person and see. So if you think of all the millions of records that are available online, represents only 5% of what is out there. That's not a big number. That's kind of mind-blowing. And some of the stuff goes back centuries. And there are gaps in there, like I said, due to fires, due to floods, due to natural disasters, earthquakes, all sorts of things. People purposely destroying records, pulling pages out of family Bibles because they didn't want a person's name in there. They didn't want to see a person's name written in there. So rather than just crossing it out, they just ripped it out. It's been stuff like that over the years. Anyway, I'm out of here. I got to go, puppy to go walk in very strong winds, so that's going to be fun. We're under a wind warning till, what's the wind warning till? Like 11 o'clock tonight, with gusts up to 40 to 50 miles an hour, and we've got to go walking in it. but it's currently like about 20 miles an hour out there. But we're rocking. It's enough that we're rocking. So anyway, go out, have a super fantastic sparkling evening. We'll catch you guys back here at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Hey, Conetta.